Testing my audio. Just waiting to see if anybody joins. Not expecting anybody, if anything. No, I bet it's picking up that noise. Not a whole lot I can do about that. Okay. See here. And this may be just nobody, and that's okay. Not a big deal. It was last minute. Do, do, do. Let's see. And yeah. Hey. Is it really quiet? Let me know if that's any better. So far, it seems like on my EQ, it's pretty much maxing out. I don't want to go too loud. Sweet. Thank you. Got any questions? And if you're really brazen, I can bring you on live if you want. And since this was last minute, I wasn't really expecting anybody to really join, so wasn't getting my hopes up on any of this, but just figured I had some free time. We were going to do an episode of Dabble and Drive tonight with Donnie, but he had to cancel last minute. So I figured since I was already online and going to do something, I figured, give people the opportunity to just jump on, ask questions, see if we can help them out in any way possible. Can you make a video of how to do the Holly setup once a adapter is installed. Are you saying you would like to like a video of how to go through and set up all the pieces like your sensors, your inputs and outputs, and things like that? Gotta love delay. Might have to put a headphone in just to see how delayed this is. Oh yeah, I could absolutely do that video. Let me take note of that. Okay. Got it down on the list. I'll get it done. Do you got anything else? Or do you want to jump on and dock car? Or cars? Because we do have a conference you can jump in and do audio if you'd like. But like I said, there's just you on here as far as I'm aware. Let's see here. Lots of awkward silence, but that's fine. Can you also show what we need to do if we wanted to add an I/O module? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I actually have a couple of those sitting around, so I could do that. That wouldn't be a problem. So can you also show what we need to do if we want? Yeah. Video. Okay. On the list. We will make it happen. So this week will be, I won't be able to get them done due to the fact that I will be at PRI. A lot of people don't know, but MF Customs will be in the booth with Big Stuff 3. We were going to announce that tomorrow on Sunday, letting people know, but it's okay to let people a little bit know tonight. Not like it's going to be breaking news to, you or anyone else. I want to see how delayed this is. And of course, course, my headphones are going to be tangled like no other. Okay, cool. So, since you're the only one on here right now, do you have you watched any of the other episodes on this, the little small podcast we've done? No. To answer your question you just posted, give me a second. The test boards for that have just arrived. So, yes, we will start testing on those very soon. Now, we did have a full Big Stuff 3 adapter set up for test benching, and that went really well. We are working with Ben over at Big Stuff 3 to fix a few little minor things. But other than that, we hope to have those ready hopefully early 2024. Ben and I will be doing a lot of talking about that and everything this coming up week. It was an honor for them to ask us to come and join them in their booth this year. They're going to have our adapters on display. So we're really excited about that. So we will be closed Thursday, Friday, and obviously the weekend. Okay, cool. Yeah, and you've watched the first episode. Yeah, I mean, we just get on here and talk about cars, talk about what's going on. We were talking about bringing other people in just to start adding more to it to see if people would be interested. You know, sometimes it's not easy to find people into the same car market or, you know, into cars the same as you are in your area anymore. We're finding people even interested in cars. Oh, Big Stuff 3 versus the Holley lineup. Great question. Whew. I think it's a good platform. I do like it. It's got a lot of neat features. The thing that really right now, and I can't get into a lot of details, but right now the current offering I think is a little much for a street car. Now, Ben might disagree with that, but I think their system is has a lot of features that wouldn't get used. So it's not like a Terminator X where it's kind of a lower version or not. I hate to use the word dummied down version, but a more economical version for the everyday user. But it works really well. I think it's a lot better than the Gen 3 stuff that they had. The Gen 4 stuff is really nice. I mean, there's a lot of features. Like one feature that I've got to play with is it supports 8 widebands, or technically 10. So you can do individual cylinder O2 correction, fuel correction per cylinder with a wideband. But again, how many people are going to use that on the street? So I think when if they come out with a more street car, we'll call it, variant of it, I think it would be perfectly fine as a comparison. For sure. Hopefully that answered your question. It was kind of there's a lot I can't say about the product yet, until after next week. But then again, I've used I've used many other different products and standalones over the years. So, do you have any other products coming? Man, do we have any other products coming out for the 9495? We do. We have some stuff coming in 2024 for that. It's going to be in our adapter lineup stuff. I really can't get into details quite yet. But yeah, we do have some more advanced stuff coming for the 9495 along with the 86 to 93 and newer platforms. They'll all come out together when they do release, but we do have some stuff coming. We did release, you probably are aware, for people using the Holley wiring, we did release a ignition harness, TFI adapter for the 9495 specifically, which, as far as I'm aware, no one else makes. So that is out. But I mean, if you're going to use the adapter, then you don't need it. But if you're using the full Holley wiring, it's a great alternative than running the 86 to 93 distributor with a TFI module attached. You get to keep your stock stuff, and you don't have to pay for that stuff. Keep the questions coming. I'll answer away. I'm sitting here fiddling with our upcoming product, which is our Holley extender, as we call it. This will allow you to run, to extend the Holley wiring. Okay, so the main difference is outputs 1 and 2. So outputs 1 and 2 on a Terminator X and X Max is a ground, and on the Dominator and HP it's a 12 volt. So because of that, we have to handle logic differently for that, because typically everybody uses outputs 1 and 2 for fan, low speed and high speed. At least we do. That's how our adapters are pre-made. Because of that, the logic on the board has to be different. They can't just be a single circuit for that, just because a lot of people don't realize, like the low speed fan on a 9495, it's actually grounded to turn the fan off, not on. So we have logic on the board, we have circuitry on the board to handle that, and then the high speed side of it needs to be a ground trigger to turn the fan on. But if the Dominator in the HPs is 12 volt, it won't do it. We did have a variant out there for those. It worked fine. We just wanted to modify it to make it more user friendly, and that's why right now they're out of stock. But we do have that coming. We got to get through testing and a few other pieces, and hopefully we'll have it back in stock. But when it does come back in stock, they will be 2 separate items, just like the 86 to 93 stuff. They are 2 separate pieces. The 86 to 93 was a little easier to get out because output 1 is not used, and output 2 is used for fan control, but it's up to the user, as the Terminator X's and the because the Foxbys came with a clutch fan or mechanical fan, not electric. It makes it easier because it makes it easier for the user to be able to switch between the two. So that's why that one was much easier to get out quicker than the 9495 because of the CCRM. The other difference I want to also include into that is the connector for the sub harness. On the sub harness, the wideband connector for the Terminator X is just the 6-pin Bosch connector, and on the Dominator it is the 8-pin and HP. It's the 8-pin NTK / Bosch that Holley uses, so it's their 8-pin connector. So that's why the sub harnesses are unique as well. Hopefully I'm getting you all the information you're wanting. That's a great question. So that's been so for the Fox Body guys, that's easy. Uh, they can either what they can do. The Fox Body guys, like I said, they do have it easier. They can just buy the Dominator HP one, and then they can buy a an adapter for the wideband temporarily to run a Terminator X, and then they work. They're just fine. It's not as easy on the 94, 95 stuff. We hope with the new board when it comes out, the new adapter for the 94, 95, that I believe you've actually been in contact with me over IM or direct message. Uh, Hopefully, when that one comes out, there will be an offering of you could buy the Dominator HP kit and you could have us pin it correctly for well, we would supply you the correct harnesses. You would just buy for an HP Dominator, but you would buy these just like a Fox buy. You would buy these wideband adapter, and then when you want to go from a Terminator X to an HP Dominator setup, the option would be you could send in your main harness, and we could do a revision on it that would make it work for the Dominator HP. But that's kind of the goal right now, but it's not set in stone. Again, it's all because the 9495 has the CCRM that causes this to be a little bit of an issue. Well, in anything newer, we are looking at another option to get around that, but that one's going to be a farther out. But that goes to the question of, do you have any other products coming up for the 9495? That would be one of those. Because you're not the first person to ask about growing into a Dominator HP. It's pretty, we don't get a lot of those purchases. But the question does come up. And I run a Dominator, so I understand where you're going with it. Great questions. Trying to keep an eye on the chat. But so far, like I said, it's just you on here. This might be it. And we might actually make a video as well on that request that you just brought up, the Dominator HP stuff, when we had the product ready, to explain to people how, if they want to grow, well, what the process would look like. We get the Terminator adapter, could we send it back later to make the changes? The current Terminator X adapter we have, no. Because the logic doesn't exist. But if you hold off until the new version comes out, then yes. You wouldn't need to send the adapter in, you would just need to send in the main harness. And the recommendation there would be, if you plan on growing and going to the HP Dominator, would be to buy the HP Dominator, but we would pre-configure it for a Terminator X up front. Then you would just use a wideband adapter, so you could run the Bosch 4.9 sensor, and then afterwards, when you're ready to go to HP or a Dominator, you would let us know. You would send in your main harness, and it would be like a 1 to 2 day turnaround. We would upgrade it for the needed capabilities, and you would just then at that point reinstall our main harness, and then you could remove the wideband O2 extension adapter to run the Bosch 4.9, and then you could run an NTK or the Bosch 4 sensor. That would be the recommendation to do, is go that route, because the sub harness, you wouldn't want to pull that back out and have it upgraded. It would just make more sense. The main harness is easy because it's just right underneath the carpet right there. I hope that makes sense. If not, just let me know. Okay, good. And just so you know, we've done that with a prior, back when we had the other adapters in production. That's how we handled that as well. Yes. So the one I'm talking about is coming out next year. It's actually here for testing. We just got to get it assembled. We do a lot of quality checks on a lot of the stuff, so we want to make sure that whatever we do releases, there won't be any issues. And even if I find something that's really tiny, that's really not an issue, we fix it before it goes to production. Like, I don't know how long you've been following us, but like when we first came out with the 94, 95 stuff, we didn't support the automatics. Even though our adapters have supported the automatics from day one, we wanted to make sure we had enough data before we would finally say they were good to go. And this is basically the same situation. I just found a little thing I didn't like, a nuance that I didn't like with the original adapter for the HP Dominator line, and we're going back to just revise that. It worked, but the nuance was kind of annoying. Because I also have 86 to 93, 96 to 98. All the revised ones are on my desk to start going through. Uh-oh, I think you're starting to figure it out. Yes, that's kind of the point. That was one of the nuanced things that I didn't like about the HP Dominators set up on the other one. And yes, that is why the updated units will be the universal for the big stuff. And not just big stuff, there's others, but we just can't talk about them right now. Legals. Legal. Big stuff was the only one that has already lifted and said we can start talking about it. Similar situation. It would be a main harness swap for the most part. So, with our universal design moving forward, would be uh, most. Gotta watch how I say some of this stuff. Most of the vendors are now using the Bosch 49, like the Terminator X's. So uh, now you can run like an NTK. I can speak towards that on the big stuff, uh, but it's their version of an NTK. I think it's more of a over-the-shelf NTK though. I'd have to go check. I don't have that familiar right now. We're working with the Bosch 49 stuff, but regardless, yeah, it would be a similar situation where you would just send in your main harness because obviously the connectors um, for a system that's got Holly is not going to plug into a big stuff, right? So it would be a send it in, and we would modify or exchange, most likely just upgrade your harness, your main harness, to go from Holly to big stuff. I'm sorry, I'm looking around to see if I have anything on my desk, and I don't have anything for that off on my desk at the moment. But that will be a service we will offer if someone wants to switch. That's also why we designed our extender that we call it. The idea behind the extender was if someone wanted to extend their Holly harness without cutting it, it could be used for that. But the other purpose for this was you could, if someone has a full Holly installed in their car and they want to go to a different vendor, they can use this to make their own patch. You know, they would plug their Holly into on one side, and then on the other side going out, they can make their own harness to plug into whatever system they want, like a big stuff. for example. And actually, I have a couple of these put together. I could go grab one if you wanted. I have some of that stuff here at the home shop. Hey, if you put the right earbud in. Yay. Oof. Yes. I think it'll be easier to show. Give me 1 second. All right, so I went and grabbed one of our little hard to show, but so this is a Gen 4 with our original adapter that's been modified to work. One of the things I do like about the big stuff is it's got an Ethernet port. And one of the benefits from that is they actually sell you with this kit that we have here. It comes with a wireless router, and you can then use your laptop wirelessly to tune. There's no cable. Like that is, and we'll support that out of the box. Like that's one of the big things I really like. Just because, I don't have a big issue with it, but I can't tell you how many times I've been working with somebody and they can't find their cable to plug in and test or do any data logging or anything like that. Now it's got, let's see, I think the other thing, it's hard to show, is it's got an SD card. Yeah, I just popped it out. So you can data log to an SD card as well. Now I know that's not fancy because you can do that with the 3.5-inch screen, but this is right on the ECU, which is what I like. So basically, it's onboard data logging, like an HP or a Dominator. Sorry, I know that's loud. Comparing it to an HP Dominator, they're both heavy. So this itself feels like the money you spent. I think that's my biggest gripe with the Terminator X platform. It feels like a plastic toy. And has been lately plagued with having problems and failures, where the HP Dominator line hasn't. And it's the same with this. Like, these haven't been having issues like the Terminator X's either. These have been running really well without problems. And even during the entire time of Holly being out of stock, big stuff was fine. They prepped for it. Now they don't have as big of a a margin on the market as Holley does. So that's a big factor into that. But regardless, um, they were always available. And they have a really cool digital dash. Kind of like a Holley Pro Dash setup. I actually have one. I can go grab it if you wanted me to go pull it. But they do have a digital dash. I'm just checking a couple things. Oops. I think the dislike I have right now on the big stuff is the UI. Holley has made it stupid simple. Um, the user interface, if you understand Megasquirt, and Ben's going to kill me for this, they use Tuner Studio, which is the same software Megasquirt uses, but they use their own derivative of Tuner Studio. So if you know how to get around with a Megasquirt, you can do pretty well with the Big Stuff 3 hardware. But yeah, I would think my biggest dislike is just the UI. Now they've been doing some good updates on it lately, and it's gotten much better. Because I know that's one of the things that they have been striving to. They know it as well, that they've been wanting to work on and fix. But that would be the biggest gripe I have, is just the software user interface. But it's no different than like if you go and pull if you go look at like Pro EFI, you go look at Link ECU, Hall Tech, Fuel Tech, any of them, you go pull it and use it for a little bit. If you don't know it, it takes a little bit to get used to. But like I know people who use Hall Tech and they love the user interface. And me, I get into it and I'm lost. So if you can get used to it, it's fine. But I think that's the dislike. I just for me. The improvements they've done though has made it better, which I like. Now the only other thing too is it doesn't have the I/O capabilities as a Dominator, but it does have a good number of inputs and outputs. I don't have the exact number. Just before you ask, I'd have to go look it up. I'm not 100% familiar with the product as I should be. Our focus right now has been the adapter side of things, and that's pick this back up. As you see, this is all it takes to adapt it. This whole other side is secondary, so this is where all their extra functionality and stuff comes in. Uh, so that side we're not going to touch because they have their own harnesses for that, and it doesn't make sense for us to touch it because it's nothing on the factory side. If that makes sense, there would be no connection through our adapter for whatever the uh, secondary options people would want to add. Yes. Even though it is bigger, it does sit taller. It does fit. Um, I've tested this in a couple of our cars. Actually, just pulled this out of one of our test cars over the yesterday, actually. So yeah, it will fit under the seat. It is tight. So if you have a seat that's been modified to sit lower, you might run into an issue. But if you're still stock height, you're fine. So like my car that I tested this in has wedge seat brackets for Recaro seats, and I had to put a spacer underneath of it, not by much. There was like 2 washers per side, uh, just to clear it. So it wasn't a huge height difference, um, but just enough to where this was hitting the bottom of the fabric of the Recaro, and I could have been okay with it, but you know, when you have that seat, you don't really want to screw up the bottom fabric on it. So I just went ahead and lifted it up. No, um, they don't do. Actually, let me hold on before I state that. Let me go double check something real quick. Uh, this is the Gen 4, and like I said, I'm not 100% keen on the Gen 4 stuff yet. I'm getting better at it. I want to say they support some, but maybe not quite yet. It does have traction control day one. Um, but I'm double checking here real quick for you. I want to say I remember seeing something for automatics, but I think it was GM based. I think it was like the 4L80s. Yes. Yeah, so they do have an option for the 4L80, but not for a Ford transmission yet. But I could be getting into something that may be announced. I don't know. It does coil and plug, does all that fun stuff out the gate. Oh, I hate that it hides the chat when I'm looking at this stuff. But yeah. So I think they could support the 4Rs, the like the 4R, the AODE and the 4R 70Ws. I think it would just be something they'd have to build into the firmware, because I'm looking now and I can see like transline pressure. I can see the torque converter, EPC. I can see all that stuff that's on the secondary connector on this. That I think it to them it would just be a software. So that's something I could bring up and see if with Ben when I'm with him this coming up week at PRI, and see if that's something that's on the radar. Because they have a bunch of CAN modules too. That's pretty cool. because they support smart coils, all your typical sensors. Again, great questions. I mean, I'll do my best to answer what I can on that product. I need to go out and buy a car with an automatic transmission in it, even though that'll hurt my feelings forever. All my cars are manual. Even all our test cars are manual. Should have just put you on audio, man. You're gonna be the only one asking questions. Anything else you would recommend with the adapter in Holley? Well, I definitely always recommend to grab two 0 to 100 psi transducers from Low Dollar for fuel and oil pressure. Those are, to me, at a minimum, you should have those. If you are naturally aspirated, I still recommend to go ahead and pick up one of their 1-bar map sensors. This way you don't have a vacuum line running from the engine bay into the passenger compartment to go to the ECU for your map. If those get pinched, get a leak, anything like that, it'll throw your system off. And it's just best just to go ahead and just put in an external map sensor and get away from that. Those are the three I highly recommend. Even if you're not running our adapter, I recommend that. The one thing that's nice about our adapter is most people don't realize flex fuel's built in. All you need to do is add the sensor. Is it okay to run a 3? Yes, you could absolutely run a 3-bar NA. I've done it. I actually ran a 4-bar NA for about a week, and zero issue. You won't have any problem.
Now, I don't remember your combination and what you're shooting for, but once you start getting past, you start talking like an HP or Dominator, then the recommendations would change pretty quick, in my opinion. But that's something we can get into if you really wanted to. I would just have to understand your combination and what your goals are. Like I know uh, Devin Vanderhoof. I think at one point he maxed out a Dominator. I have as well. I kind of went down the same path as he did and just wanted to load it up with sensors, and it was really fun to do. Yes, so on Low Dollar Motorsports, there are two different varieties. You have the ones that start out with a 799, that's their 799 series, and they have an 899 series. I recommend the 899 series. If you are going to be mounting the sensor on the engine, if you are going to be using a sensor block, meaning you're going to use buy their sensor block and remote mount your sensors off of the engine, so say like on a firewall, fender apron, frame rail, then I'm okay with the 799. And the differences is one of them is gel filled for the sensor, which helps against vibration, and that's the 899. So just remember, if you're going to mount like your oil pressure transducer on the side of the block, you want the 899. But if you're going to mount your oil pressure sensor in a sensor block, say on your fender apron, then the 799 will be fine because it won't have the harmonics of the engine that might cause problems with the sensor. Now, I've run the 799s on an engine with zero issue, but that's what was given back to me by Brandon over at Low Dollar. And since they designed them, I just follow his lead. He knows the sensors better than I do. But I've never had issues with their sensors. Um, I have one fail, and it was like a 2-year-old sensor, and I made a comment just saying, well, they do fail after time. I mean, anything does. And next thing I know, he saw the post and he sent me another one. And I mean, that wasn't even the reason why I made a post about it. It was just to let the person know that, sensors do age out, and, they stand behind their product really well. I've used some of the Rife sensor stuff as well. Their GT150 connector stuff does work with our harnesses. But their GT150 connector style, just like the Low Dollars, there's not much of a difference between the two. So at that point, you would just go with the one you want to use. I just say stay away from the Amazon stuff. That stuff has been all over the place. So in the upcoming product, that will already be used. I won't get into what it's used for yet. We'll announce that when we announce the new boards, the new adapter or the universal style. But you could use that fourth input for pretty much anything you want. You could use it for another sensor. In your again, I don't know your scenario, but if it was up to me, I'm gonna base this off of the fact that you mentioned a 3 bar but going NA, so that tells me at one point you're going to go supercharged. I would swap out your coolant temperature sensor for a combo sensor and get one that does coolant temp, and it also does pressure. And the reason for that is you can start to monitor if you start to see an increase in pressure in your coolant system outside of the typical, what is it, 14 to 19 psi, depending on your setup, to make sure that you're not uh, putting boost into the coolant system. That would actually be an indication that you're starting to lift a head gasket or have lifted a head gasket. It was a toss-up between that or putting one in a valve cover and monitoring crankcase pressure. Same situation. You could do that for NA as well. It would let you know if you're starting to have ring failure, where you start seeing more pressure inside the crankcase. Yes, Low Dollar does have the combo sensors. The only thing there I would recommend is if you want, you could modify your factory harness, because you would it wouldn't plug in anymore to the factory coolant temp sensor connector. You could modify that so you could use it, or there's a few options there that we could help you with. I just won't get into them right now, but we could absolutely help you with that. I've done it. And for the crankcase pressure monitoring, you would just buy a 2-bar map sensor. One. Because it would soak up one input, and that would be for the pressure side. The coolant temp side would still use the factory original Holley coolant temp. So you would just splice that into right into your coolant temp sensor connector for that part, because it'll be 4 wires, sensor ground, and then your coolant temp sender, and then you would have a 5-volt reference which you could grab from the EGR connector, and then you could then use the 4th input for the coolant temp pressure. But heads up, if you're not using EGR, and what I mean by that, if you're not using the EGR, I'll answer that in a second. If you're not using the EGR for a wideband connection, you could technically use input 2 for that. Input 2 is set up to connect to the EGR for a secondary wideband input. You could technically just use that for the coolant if you wanted. So technically you have 2 inputs available. Oil, what you would do there is they have a dual sensor oil pressure and oil temp. I run one of those as well. I monitor my oil temp. I actually run 2 temp sensors from oil. I run one pre and post cooler. I actually run multiple manifold air temps as well. 99 Stang Dude, recently watched your video on IAC control and found some of your posts on Ford Holley Facebook groups. Do you recommend the same starting IAC for 4.6 currently? Yes. 99 Stang Dude, because the 4.6 uses a PWM style 2-wire IAC, yes, follow the same steps. I think we even talked about it a little bit, that you would follow the same steps as you would with the Fox body process instead of the SN95. But yeah, you would follow those steps, and it should fix majority of your issues. Yes, so secondary wideband as in the 2 O2 sensors. Yes, so we have our input 2 set up to match what people used to do with the quarter horse. They would hook up a secondary wideband sensor. They would buy like a PLX, a Lantronix, Zentronic, whatever. There was a bunch of them. You would take that, and it would have a 0 to 5 volt output, and you would put that into the EGR pin and then from there you could read it with the Moats quarter horse and data log it. So that's why it's there. But it's not in use. If you're not going to do that, then it's not in use, then it's available. And you can use it as well. And 99 Stang, dude, yeah, if you're having issues with idle after you do that, reach out. I'm more than happy to try to help you out with that. But just keep in mind, I mean, if you watch that video, you do want to make sure that you have everything else figured out. Like you got all your other tables and stuff pretty much dialed in. So, because you'll just chase your tail if you don't. And thanks for joining. I didn't expect a whole lot of people to join this. Like I was telling the other gentleman, it was just a last minute. We typically do a car talk with Donnie from Anderson Ford Motorsports, and he had a last minute cancellation. So I just figured, you know, I'll just open this up for Q&A for anybody who's got questions and need help with anything. I'm here to help. So yes, if you hook up a secondary wideband with a Terminator X, you can monitor both banks. Just remember that your primary wideband sensor will be the only one doing fuel control and fuel correction. The secondary one would be for monitoring only. A lot of people get caught up on not having dual bank monitoring. It's okay, but what I do is once I feel like I have my tune dialed in pretty well, I'll move the wideband over to the other bank just to see how things are going. Sounds good. Car runs great right now, but want to get the IAC functioning how it should. Currently just running it at fixed position based on... Oh, yeah, I mean, you could do that. I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it, but yeah. I mean, I've done it that way too, where in fixed positions with coolant temp. You're probably doing that with an advanced table, I'm assuming. In 99 Stang, I'm assuming you're talking a 4.6 out of your, I'm assuming a 99. And if you are, I believe those have the IAC that has a a port on it that goes to the intake tube, right? Be good if we go to a custom tuner, right? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of benefits of having the secondary wideband for monitoring purposes. I'll try to sneak peek something real quick. So on our revision coming up, I don't know how well that's coming in. It's not going to focus very well. We might have that built into the board. Yes, basically just zeroed out all the values in the idle ICF. You're correct on the intake board. It actually 2000. Oh, yeah. I've not been big into the new Edge cars. I had an 03 GT at one point. Just I don't know. I just love the SN95s. I own too many of them at this point, but I thought that's how those were set up. So yeah, the process would be similar to like the Fox body. So, but again, if you have any issues or whatnot, just let me know. I'm assuming you're also running. Are you running a digital dash, or did you work with Nathan Hensley to piggyback your ECU to keep your gauges working? I'm kind of curious. Oh, okay. So yeah, you did the Tinker Dash. Okay. How do you like the Tinker Dash? I bought one, then was going to use it, and next thing I know, a customer wanted one, and the wait time was a little too long for the need. So I just sold him mine and did the install. But I mean, I only got to use it for a little bit. What's your thoughts? Thank you. I try to be helpful as much as I can with tech support. I mean, not I've been doing this stuff for 20 plus years, so I mean, I've used pretty much every standalone ECU there is on the market at some point or another. I mean, I even have a Anderson Ford Motorsport PMS over on my old desk, and I have one for like every generation as well. I might even have a Fast Classic somewhere. Lots of silence while I wait for questions. I know there's going to be some delay, but that's all right. I really like it. They're going to have some more updates soon from what I've seen on Facebook. It's not as fancy as the Holly Dashes, but does more than enough to get the job done. Yeah, and that's what I noticed when I used it. It was uh, a good middle road. Like, I think it had more options than the original Holly 7-inch dash, um, but not as much as the Pro Dash, right? So it was a good middle of the road, and the pricing on them is really reasonable. I should go grab that big stuff dash because I've actually not pulled it out of the box yet. Everything I've seen though, they're pretty nice. I've done some swaps on the new edges, and it's not bad. Um, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I bought it for more of a test unit, because I wanted the ability to for our test stands here. But yeah, it sounds about right. I think that's what I paid too. It was like, yeah, it was less than $600 shipped. Those Pro Dashes are just getting out of sight. Yeah, the Pro Dashes are cool and all, but I don't run one. I actually don't run a digital dash in any of my cars. I finally just did a 3.5-inch screen install on my personal 95 that I drive from time to time with our screen holder, but even then, that was more for just to support the products that we make. I like my factory gauges, even if they are dated. Like I was saying earlier, I was hoping more people would join, but at the same time, this was last minute, so. And what do you expect? I think this channel only has like 18 subscribers. This is more of just a shoot the shit and have fun conversations and talk about cars. Yeah, there's no way I would ever do a Holly install without the factory gauges working. Um, a lot of people don't realize like we weren't going to support the 86 to 93 originally. I run the 3.5 screen. Yeah, I mean, so a lot of people don't realize is we've actually made the plug and play adapter for Holly about 3 years. For other systems like Fast EFI, God, almost 20 years. It wasn't until I had a customer drop off a car that we were restoring that talked me into finally going public and offering these to as a product you could buy versus when we're building your car, we would do the install. And the other reason I installed the 3.5-inch screen in mine was I like the fact that I can data log on it. Typically, I have a Dominator in that car, but there are times I do switch it out for a Terminator X or an X Max to do some testing. Uh, 99 Stang, dude, do you know anybody running the Gateway? Race Products Gateway? The plug and play adapter for the 99 to 04 stuff? I know one person, but that's all I know. I was just curious. I do the same. It's 3.5. Easy to start a day. Oh, yeah. Um, so we had to pause. I remember the post, but yeah, we had to put a pause on doing those. We started offering that service I think back in June, and in between about 75 to 90 days in, we had over 300 ECUs come in, and I did not have the support staff for that. We're small, so we're trying to get through them as quick as we can. We're buried in them. I have 2 people right now dedicated just doing nothing but repairs, trying to get caught up so we can get those out. And then we're going to look into how we can possibly bring that service back. But as of right now, we have to get caught up, and it also put a big delay on a lot of our products that we wanted to produce and get out that wasn't, great. But I've also, just so you're aware, we have reported all the data that we have found on that issue that you brought up, the coolant temp and the intake air. We did bring that up with Holly and showed them what the problem was, what lot for that part seemed to be affected the most, to hopefully even send them serial numbers and all that data as well from all the products that we've had come in and ongoing. And in the end, it was more of it's a small number to them. So I think they just shrugged it off. But I'll be at PRI in Thursday through Saturday, so they'll be there as well, and I'm going to hit up a couple of the people there and see if I can tackle one of them and talk to them about it a little bit more. Because I don't think it's fair to the customers. I really don't. I don't think it's a fair situation where the thing could sit on the shelf for a year and be bad. And when I say sitting on the shelf, you bought it and you didn't use it for a year, just because things happen, and the thing works for a day and a half. We've seen that, and it's horrifying. I don't know the true failure rate. You have to remember, we're just a small company, and we're getting just a small number of those to come in here. But the fact that out of that 300-ish that we had come in, 90+% of them were that issue. The rest of them were that we have determined are either injector driver issues that we can repair quickly, get those out, and that's kind of how we offset stuff. Is if we knew exactly what the issue was, we would do the stuff that we do quickly and get those turned around, instead of a first in first out situation. Because to do the IAC and MAT, sorry, not the IAC, but the coolant temp and the IAT fix, it requires removing the J1A and J1B connector off the board, because the parts are underneath of it, and that can be time consuming. Sometimes we can get it off in a few minutes, sometimes it takes a half hour, and we've had some take up to 2 hours just because the way it's got all the chemical stuff on it. I'm trying to think of the thing, but it's late. Oh, well, hopefully my new unit doesn't do the same. Yeah, so because you can get away with the IAT being broken because you can just zero out those tables. But what you can't get away from is the coolant temp, because so much uses it. Fueling, idle air control, and all of that. You just can't get away from it. So, which sucks. So yeah, I get it. I hope your new unit doesn't do it either. What we've been telling a lot of customers to do is to bite the bullet and buy an HP at a minimum. We don't see the failures on the HP and the Dominators. Is that poor assembly or cheap components? I don't want to say it's either one of those, actually. I think what it is it was during a time, and I hate to use COVID as an excuse. I think it was just products were built during that time, And I'm talking the components, not Holley's Terminator X in general, but the actual little components that are going on there. And it's a Zener diode that's dying. I think it's just poor manufacturing process on those components during that time, because we actually had a stock of those Zener diodes that we were replacing that was actually we found out were the same lot number that Holley was using, and then we would repair using that component, not knowing that off the beginning, and then months down the road that product would come back because that would fail again. We have found a different manufacturer with the same values, so it's a direct swap replacement, and those seem to be doing better, and that's what we've been moving forward with. But 99 thing, dude, just stay in touch. If we get caught up and stuff, we could look at repairing your old one. So yeah, I get it. The HPs are like $1,600, so I get the fact that buying an HP plus on top of that you have to buy the wideband sensor, right? Because you either got to buy the Bosch 4 or the NTK. You can't use your Terminator X wideband, so you're into it $1,900 just to go to an HP. So I totally get it. Like, yeah, and like I've have some Terminator X's and Maxes that we've installed that were definitely pre-COVID. They were 2019 ECUs, early 2020 ECUs, and they're all running fine. It seems to be the ones that were closer to 2021. The lot for that component was built between 2021 and 2022. Seems to be the issue. And sadly, there's just so much of those out there still. You can still buy them, which is insane. You would think there would be a turnover rate faster on those, but doesn't seem to be. You think maybe more recent build? I really think the reason, I don't think even the newer ones will be fixed for that issue. I think it's a heat issue, and this is just my feeling on it. So there's no truth, not truth, but no evidence. I think the big reason why those are failing is heat. And I'm not saying heat because you might have it in your engine bay or something of that nature. I think it's component heat. And because they're not potted, they have to rely on free air. So, stagnant air to cool them. And that is what I believe is what's killing them. And that's why the HP and Dominators don't have that problem, is because they are potted. And because of that potting material sits on top of those components, it helps dissipate the heat across much better and keeps things cooler. So, I literally just spent $1,100 getting my converter raised. Whew. Yeah, I know. Converter work is not cheap. Neither is valve body. For the fun of it, what do you run? You run a 4R70W? You run, what do you got in that? I'm not an auto guy, but I mean, I used to do a bunch of 4R70W stuff back in like the 2000s. I actually had a 4R70W behind my 408 Windsor that I raced. So you can't. The reason behind that is because it is mounted. The component is literally underneath of the connector, so there's no way to cool it down any more than what it is. It's also bad placement. Like most things you learn when you do electronic engineering is you don't place things in those spots. I get they have to because of location and fixed base. I can go grab an EC if you really want me to. I can go grab one and show you what it looks like on the inside with the connector removed. I have one. Actually, I have one that's actually got that issue sitting over that we used as a demo unit. The ECU was just 100% bad, so we didn't remove the connector correctly. We just cut it. But I can show you exactly what breaks. But yeah, heat sinks are not going to solve the problem. I wish a heatsink would fix the issue. I've actually been tempted to potting one. 4R70W FB performance. Oh. Yeah, that T45 lasted longer than I would ever expect it to. Awesome, man. That's a great build. Because you have the 4R70W, are you still allowing the ECU to control it, or did you go all manual valve body? I saw you said you did a valve body, but I didn't know if you did a. I didn't know if you were manual or still electronic. I'm hoping electronic, because I really like that stuff. Of course, I was doing that stuff back when it was still, tweakers and quarter horses to tune that stuff. So I've been out of it for a little bit. Okay. Okay, yeah, and I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if you could do a trans brake with an electronic valve body or not. It'd be nice if you could, but I would think there'd be a way. But again, I've not been in the auto game in a while, so I won't pretend like I know anything anymore. I'll stick to my manual transmissions. Speaking of, I gotta yank mine. I need to get that done before Christmas. So while I'm waiting on questions, if you guys have any, since you both are in the Ford Holly group, how do you feel like that group is compared to some of the others? I do my best to moderate that the best I can, but I'm kind of curious on some feedback on that, if you don't mind. Or just tell me I'm a complete idiot. That's okay too. Six already can do the electronic shift and do a trans brake. Oh. Man, when they finally release an updated module that will support the 6R80 on a Holly, yeah, I might do a 6R80 swap. Yeah, so Lentec makes one. Oh. So the green car that I've done the video in, that is my personal 95 that I drive quite a bit. But that's got an Astro Performance T5 in it still, and it's got the billet case. I have to look at the Lentec and see what theirs are. I'm tempted to build another race car, and if I do it, I'll probably start out manual again, but might look at going a 4R70W again, or go to a 6R80 if I can get a Holly to support it. I go to the Ford page first because before the general page is way. Yeah, I try to keep the bassing and trolling to a minimum. I've had a conversation with all of the tuners on the group to make sure that they all get along because I'm not going to have it if they start bickering. I wouldn't say I carry the group, but I do my best to make sure it's well maintained. It's, you know, I do what I can do there, for sure. Uh, there's still spam that comes in from time to time, but I try to catch it as fast as I can. But a lot of that has died off. It seems like they've gone after other stuff, like creating their own Facebook pages to sell parts that someone sold years ago. But then Facebook won't take them down because they're like, we don't see anything wrong with this page. Blah, 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 blah. So stupid. Sorry, that could be a soapbox if I got on that one. Man, I was just making sure things are still peaceful over there. I need to get with the other admin on that group and see if he's up for us adding some moderators just to help delete posts. So it's just not myself. Stan's a pretty good guy, but I don't think he really does any moderating anymore. I think he pretty much just gave up. Not gave up, but just, yeah, don't know the right term to say. Because I can go look at the history and see who's doing everything, and it's pretty much me. Um, 99 thing, dude, for the manual transmission stuff with my Astro Performance T5, the best I ever did in that in the quarter mile was 960, if I remember right. 960 at 100 and it's like 152. I'd have to go pull the slip. It's been forever. And that was before the slipper clutches stuff became popular. That was with a, what was that? Oh, yeah, that was a 408 Windsor with an 88 millimeter turbo. I did have a 96 Cobra 32 valve car that I had a Power Glide in that ran nines. Sold that back in 2005. Man, coming up in 20 years. Well, yeah, I mean, your issue is going to be the T45 in general. They were never meant for high RPM shifting either. My T5 was that way until I went with the Astro Performance's billet case. That company's been out of business now for a few years, I guess. But there's a guy here local, not quite local, he's about a 90-minute drive. He still has the tools to do rebuilds on them, so I'm going to take mine out and have him do a rebuild. It's been a few years, it's been about 5 that it's due. It won't hold second anymore. I need to bite the bullet and just throw a TKX in it. I have one. Yeah, the inconsistency. Yeah, with the T45, you're going to have a ton of inconsistency, but the T45 is no different than the T5, besides the integrated bell housing. So all the issues I had, you would have as well. So I totally get it. But it's fun. Like rolling through the gears is a ton of fun going down the track. And I will admit, I picked up a few tenths in the quarter when I went to a 4R70W. Which made me sad. Because I thought I was really good at shifting. But it was the ability not to lose boost or much boost pressure when you're shifting with the automatic versus the manual is what really helped. And both of you guys are on Instagram. Make sure you follow the MF Customs page, and I'll follow you back. Kind of like checking on people's rides and seeing how they're doing. I get a kick out of that stuff because I've been out of racing for years. Now I just build fun toys. So what's your full combination? I mean, so we got a little history here. We got boost. We have a 4.6. We have a 4R70W. You got a nice converter now. You got trans brake. You know, and I offered up to the other guy too. If you wanted to join audio, there's an option that I can. If you send me a private message, I can send you a link and you can get up on audio. If you don't want to type or don't want the lag, just let me know. Because that's what we do here. We talk cars and have fun. I think the other dude dropped anyways. It is getting late, but I talk cars all the time. That's basically it. Stock 2 valve on 3 performance with an eBay 6762. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I could see that running at 1090. I mean, right weather, right tires, right tune up. I can see that getting in the 1090s. The turbo might be a little small though. But I think you can still do it. I would almost want to say go up to a 70, but yeah, since you're on Terminator X, it would be almost fun to know what your back pressure looks like. Start monitoring your back pressure to see what that looks like, to see if you've outgrown the turbo. This pulls super quick. It was super punchy with the manual. Yeah, the 6973 kind of makes sense. Yeah, again, it would be kind of be interesting to see what it looks like on the back pressure side. on that. But I mean, even some of the Coyote guys, I mean, it's a different engine, but even some of the Coyote guys are making some insane powers in quarter mile passes with, pair 66s, 67s. And those cars really wake up when they go up a little bit on size. It's insane for me to even think today that you can buy a Coyote and put on a supercharger and make 1,000 horse. Just still insane to me. I come from the small block Ford world where you pretty much give up everything to be able to make that much power. I think we've done, it's just not as easily or cheap. Because when I built my 32 valve 4.6, I was amazed by how much power that thing made with very little effort. Yeah, you should be able to do back pressure. You should be able to add a sensor and run it to an input. If you have an available input, you should be able to do it. I wouldn't see why you couldn't. What would you recommend? What to be a turbo that I can put on it this driver? I mean, I think you're going the right way with the 6973. I mean, you could look at something in the 70, 74 range as well on the front side. I'll have to check out your desk car. But yeah, I mean, front side 70, 74 millimeter, maybe upwards to 80 on the back. But I'd have to know quite a bit more about the combination. But I mean, I think you're going into the right steps though. Because you don't want to go too big either, because I mean, this is something that seems like it's more of a street car too, something you want to have fun with. And you don't want it to be lazy. So turbo sizing can be an art form in its own. It's sad that I still remember when the 347 stuff came out. It was the big craze. The 331 existed, then the 347 came out and everybody's like, yay, but then, you had to notch the block to make them work. I think my first stroker was a 327. It was basically a 331 with standard size pistons. Yeah, I won't trailer any of my cars. Jump over here to Instagram real quick. Like when I did racing and I did the Fun Ford event, I drove everywhere. I never trailered the car. Everything, tools, tires, tent, Smokey Joe, the whole 9 yards, all went in the car. And I drove from track to track. Yeah. The only time it was ever any time that my cars were ever trailered was because I made a 4-cylinder block. Made 2 of them. That was about it. Let's go take a peek here. Okay, yep, black S. Yep, definitely a 90, 99 or 2000, 2000. Yep. Nice, looks good. Scrolling back here is the red one, the red hatchback, your dad's. Looks like a carb raid setup. Yeah. Let's go back to it real quick. Sounded healthy. Contour fans, electric pump. Nice. Like it. I love that old school stuff. I'm not the anti go carbureted guy. Like, I get it. There's points in time that it makes sense to do it. We still do blow through setups, turbo supercharged blow through setups for carburetors. Beautiful car. Uh-oh. He's back. Yes, it is one of the test cars. That's actually my personal car. The Novi, the green car. Yes. And funny enough, you actually kind of got to specify which one. I own, at this point, 3 of those Deep Force green cars. But the one that I did the video on, yes, that is a test car. That's actually my personal car. 2 of them are Novi powered. The green one in the video is if you're interested, I'll answer it real quick, even though you haven't asked, but I have a feeling it might come. It's a 363. 363 Novi 2000 AFR 185 custom cam. I ran a best of 10 2 at 100. Yeah, those 347s built like that with high compression and everything. Yeah, they ran low 10s all day long. They were insane cars. And yeah, I get the restrictor plate because of index classes. And I don't know if you were off earlier, but yeah, so the 363 car with the Novi, it's an Astro Performance T5, but it's pretty standard. I mean, 65 millimeter throttle body. Never really saw a big power increase by changing out throttle bodies, and I like the Ford Motorsport throttle body, so I just stuck with it. The elbow's ported, it's hogged out. But other than that, it's a full weight car. No roll bar, no nothing. It's just the car was originally a V6 car. I bought it in 2002 on a bet, or a dare, I should say. Not really a bet. The bet came after. But I've had many different combinations throughout the years, from anything from 2.3 turbo setups all the way up to 570-ish cubic inch big block Fords in that car. It's always been the mule car for the longest time. The 347 is a 13-1 E85. Yeah, 680. Yeah, I can tell by the lift. The thing's got a big cam in it. He's not able to go much more than 10 with a 6-point. They'll start yelling at him. I think the rules now is 990s and higher. You got a 8 or a 10 point, right? I've been retired out of it for years. So I'd have to go look. We don't do. We do a lot of. I shouldn't say we don't do a lot of, but we do a lot of custom stuff, custom builds, and race cars. But the chassis stuff, we have a guy that does it for us. I used to do it, and I just don't do it anymore. And he does nothing but chassis work, so I can always just drop a car off and, a week later have the car back. Yeah, even tens is fast. Everybody's seeing the stuff out there where they got to run nines, eights, sevens, and all this fun stuff. You put those people that's never ran that, put them in a 10-second car, they'll pee themselves. Sorry, but it's the truth. One more time, because it just sounds so good. I always think the small block Ford is probably one of the best sounding engines on the planet. People may disagree with me on that, but that's fine. Whoa, dude, you got a baby coming. Congrats. That is you, right? Yeah. Congrats. That's awesome. Yes and no. So the last time that Novi, the 363 Novi's been on the dyno has been forever. Made just shy of 800 with a party pulley on it. The 275, 2.75 inch. I run a 360, 3.60 inch pulley on it, which doesn't make near as much boost. And it still makes over 500. And it's plenty. It's more than enough for a street car. It has not been to the track with the 363. I retired out of racing. Let's see, my kid is in 13 plus years ago. She's old enough now to where I'm thinking about getting back into it, but right now it's not been a track. I haven't been down a quarter-mile strip in 13, 14 years. Yeah, social media has really destroyed the whole how much horsepower a car makes and this and that and all that stuff. It's kind of annoying. Then you get people on some of these even Facebook groups that are like, if your car doesn't run fours in the 8th mile, then you're nobody. And it's like, dude, I could put you a car that runs 6 in the 8th mile and you would still piss yourself. So the Novi stuff, a lot of people don't realize is the Novi 2000 is basically the ones that I run are the older serial numbers. They're pre 50,000. And that is back when the original Paxton company owned them. They're geared different, and they're basically the equivalent of the YSI that Vortec makes. So they'll handle 1,000+ horse. I think the record, I think someone made like 1,300 on one. And granted, at that point, it was making a ton of heat, unintercooled. But the original older Novi 2000s are insane. And that's why I run them, and that's why I have a bunch of them on the shelf. Yeah, everybody wants to make 1,000 horsepower. I tell people anything like 550, 600 on the street is more than enough. 600 horsepower to the tire starts becoming useless. You just already said what I said. Yep, exactly. I'm between 550 and 600 on the street. You can't plant that type of horsepower down on the street. It's almost impossible. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. And you got these cars coming out now with that horsepower and more from the factory, and it's like, I get that we're kind of in a horsepower war, but those people that can even afford those cars aren't going to use it. I might want to watch it because I might get on a soapbox. Sorry. Yeah, I think my car, I mean, with what it makes, is 32. It's almost 3,300 pounds now, but that's because of me. It used to be like 3,250-ish with me in it. Now it's closer to 3,300. And it's an insane animal on the street. And like I mentioned earlier, it was a V6 car. So up until a couple years ago, I ran V6 wheels on it. So 15 by 7 wheels, and a 205 55 R15s. I did have a set of the stock V6 wheels for the back widened to 10 inches, and I'd run a drag radial on those. But I would cruise around on all four, little 205 55 pizza cutters. Then I got smart. Yeah, you probably did gain about 100 pounds with the automatic swap. I can see that. 3,400 in a new Edge seems reasonable. My car's the green one that we're talking about. It's power everything. It's because it was a V6 car. A lot of people think that it was manual windows and stuff, but it wasn't. It had all the options. It just didn't have the Mach 460 system. So she's kind of heavy. It did still have stock base seats in it, but at one point I did switch it out for the sport bucket seats that came in the GTs and the Cobras, but then I swapped it back to the base because I liked them better. And my theory on that was if the 95 Cobra R could run the base V6 seats and be comfy, I can run it too, and they are more comfy. They have more padding. And I drive that car hundreds of miles on single trips. So I'd rather be comfy than look good.